The difference between dealing with someone who's emotionally immature versus an actual narcissist could literally be the difference between saving your relationship and saving your life. And most people get it completely wrong. If you haven't subscribed my channel, do so now, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another warning about toxic people. It could change everything about how you handle the difficult people in your life. You don't get a second chance at your own well-being. You guys, you deserve to know the truth, because too many folks are out here stumbling through heartache, thinking they're up against one thing when it's actually something else entirely, and the price of that mistake. Sometimes it's years of your life. Sometimes it's your peace of mind. Sometimes, let's be real, it's your safety. So let me lay this right out for you. The critical mistake I've watched happen over and over is folks calling someone a narcissist just because they act selfish or throw a tantrum, or excusing a narcissist's abuse as childishness, or they just never grew up. That confusion, it's dangerous. When you call someone a narcissist who's actually just stunted emotionally, you pretty much write them off, wash your hands of them, and maybe lose a relationship that could have grown if you'd gotten it right. And then there's the flip side, which makes my blood run coldsy. I've seen people lose decades, folks, of their lives locked in this cycle of trying to fix a narcissist, clinging to hope that patience or kindness will change someone who uses, manipulates, and empties them year after year. That's not just wasted time. That's wasted hope, wasted energy, and it's collateral damage that ripples out to kids, families, and your own sense of who you are. Let me tell you a story. In my 45 years of practice, I've had people come into my office absolutely broken, saying, "Dr. Phil, I've tried everything. I bought all the self-help books, went to marriage counseling, changed myself inside out for this person, and nothing works. Why doesn't anything get better?" Then I look at what's really going on, and half the time, it turns out they've been living with someone who's never going to change a true narcissist. But then, just as often, I've had folks say, "That's it, I'm done. My partner acts like a child, I can't take it," and they check out. But when we pick it apart, what they're actually seeing is emotional immaturity, not the deep, self-obsessed cruelty you find in real narcissism. Those folks with some boundaries, hard work, and support, they could have had a shot at real improvement at healing a relationship. But that door gets slammed shut because they got the diagnosis wrong. Let's talk about just how high the stakes really are here. When you mislabel someone, when you mix up emotional immaturity and narcissism, you change the whole game plan. Think about it like this. If you go to a doctor and they mix up the flu with cancer, your treatment is wrong from the get-go. And let's be honest, you'd be furious. This is no different. If someone's emotionally immature, your hope is accountability, communication, giving them the chance to grow up. With a narcissist, you've got to protect yourself, because their whole game is control, validation, and using you as a mirror for their own empty sense of worth. If you reverse those strategies, you're setting yourself up for frustration at best, or real danger at worst. Your mental health, your peace, and in some cases, your physical safety are on the line. Don't just take my word for it. The research backs this up, no contest. All narcissists show emotional immaturity, every single one. That arrested development, that explosive reactivity, the self-centeredness, that's part of the narcissist profile. But not all emotionally immature people are narcissists. Most emotionally immature folks aren't plotting to hurt you or to win at your expense. They're just stuck, and they need help finding their way up the emotional ladder. Studies from top clinical psychologists have shown this for years. In fact, if you scan the research, you'll see countless examples where interventions worked wonders with emotionally immature people. With true narcissists, the average prognosis is grim. You can't love someone out of narcissism. You can't patience or guilt or hope them out of that pattern. They don't want to change, because in their world, they're not the problem. I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever sat with that gnawing doubt in your gut wondering if that difficult person in your life is just immature, rough around the edges, or if there's something much darker going on under the surface. Are they acting out because they never learned better, or because they're running the show, manipulating everyone in their orbit? Drop a comment and tell me what behaviors you're seeing. I want to help you figure this out. Maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's your boss, or maybe you're seeing these patterns in yourself, and that's okay. We don't get better until we call things by their rightful name. Here's the bottom line: learning to tell the difference between emotional immaturity and narcissism is not just academic. It's survival. It's peace of mind. It's the difference between taking a chance on growth and healing and knowing when you need to start planning your exit before you lose even more of yourself. Your mental health depends on this. Your future happiness depends on this. And if you're raising kids with a partner who fits either category, the next generation's well-being depends on it too. Now, I'm not throwing you into the deep end without a lifeline. There is hope, and you do have options. If you're dealing with emotional immaturity, look, it's not going to be a quick fix, but I've seen people change. I've seen dads who used to scream over spilled milk learn to apologize. I've seen women who clung to insecurity and drama do the hard work of self-reflection and finally stand strong. Growth is possible for emotionally immature folks, if and only if they want it, and if you set clear lines. You give them a roadmap, consequences, and a good therapist. Some folks will surprise you. They can change. But, and this is a big but, narcissism is another animal altogether. I'm not here to sell you snake oil or give you false hope. A real narcissist isn't going to wake up one day and decide to be a decent human being because you love them hard enough. They're not just stuck at age 13 emotionally. They're weaponizing every weakness, every ounce of kindness, every hope you have, and twisting it for their own gain. That's why knowing the difference right now could save you endless pain and maybe even save your life. The good news: with that knowledge, you can finally stop banging your head against the wall with people who will never care, and pour your energy into those who might just need the right nudge to become better versions of themselves. Before we dive into how you tell the difference, how you figure out where someone lands on this spectrum, you need to know exactly what emotional immaturity actually looks like. We're not talking about 1 or 2 bad days or someone who gets moody when they're tired. This is a pattern, a way of living, reacting, connecting, and I'm going to break it down for you step by step because, trust me, the clarity is worth its weight in gold. Don't go anywhere. This is where the real work begins. Let me tell you something about emotional immaturity. It ain't just being a little childish sometimes. It's a whole pattern of behavior that comes from never learning how to handle your emotions like a grown-up. I want you to really sit with that for a minute because it's important. This isn't just nonsense or one-off slip-ups. It's about folks who've yet to cross that finish line into emotional adulthood. You see it every day at home, at work, sometimes when you look in the mirror. Most people don't get it. They just write someone off as difficult or dramatic, but there's a real difference between a little moodiness and the deep-rooted habits that define emotional immaturity. When we talk about emotional immaturity, we're talking about a developmental lag. Imagine an adult who emotionally is 12 years old. They might have a job, drive a car, pay their bills, but when it comes to handling conflict, managing feelings, showing empathy, they're stuck back in junior high, except now the consequences are a whole lot bigger. These are grown bodies with kid-level emotional skills, and it makes everything tougher for them and for everyone around them. So let's get real about what this actually looks like. First up, impulsive behavior. If something pops into their head, it comes out of their mouth or turns into action. No filter, no pause, no thinking about the mess it might leave behind. You'll see them blow money they don't have, say things that cut deep, quit jobs or relationships on a whim, then blame everyone else when the dust settles. And they never seem to learn from it. Every time, it's like the lesson just floats right past them. Then there's that constant need for attention. Their craving is bottomless. They might act out, tell inappropriate jokes, play the victim, or just stir the pot until everyone in the room is looking their way, even if it means making a scene. You see it at family gatherings, the uncle who hijacks every conversation, or the friend who picks a fight just so no one forgets they're there. All that energy. It's not about control or manipulation, it's about filling up an empty tank inside. And let's talk about emotional regulation, or the lack of it. These folks are always riding the roller coaster. Something small goes wrong and it's meltdown city. They'll slam doors, raise their voices, drop out of plans, maybe even ghost you for days over a minor slight. The thing is, their tolerance for frustration is almost non-existent. You can spot it a mile away. Someone cuts them off in traffic, and you're in for a blow up or a sulking silent treatment that lasts until they decide they've suffered enough. Avoiding responsibility is another hallmark. When things go sideways, it's never their fault. The emotionally immature become world-class finger pointers. You'll hear them say, "Well, I wouldn't have yelled if you hadn't pushed my buttons," or, "It's not my fault I missed the deadline. My boss never explained it right." Accountability is foreign territory. Why own up to your mistakes when blaming someone else feels easier? But here's the kicker. It's not because they're calculating, it's because truly believing it's not their fault helps keep that fragile sense of self intact. And let's settle something right now about empathy. Emotional immaturity isn't evil. The empathy issues here don't come from malice. They come from a lack of development. It's like their empathy muscle never got exercised. They get so stuck in their own feelings, they literally can't see past the end of their own nose when things get emotional. They might come off insensitive or thoughtless, but it's more like they're missing the tool than actively refusing to care about you. This isn't just opinion. Research backs it up, loud and clear. Study after study shows that emotional immaturity is often rooted in childhood environments where emotions were either ignored or punished. If grown-ups never showed a kid how to process anger without exploding, or how to sit with sadness instead of lashing out, that kid stays stuck right there emotionally, even when their body grows up. Some of the most telling data comes from work on emotional regulation development. Children who never get to model or safely express big feelings, they turn into adults who default to the same tricks, hiding, exploding, blaming. Only now, the stakes are families, careers, and relationships. I remember working with a woman whose husband would explode at her over the tiniest things. If she bought the wrong brand of cereal, silent treatment for 2 days. If she called him out, he'd shout, punch the wall, make her feel like she was the crazy one. She came to me thinking, maybe he's a narcissist. But when we dug into it, here's what we found. As soon as he cooled down, he'd apologize. He'd try to make amends. He seemed genuinely lost and ashamed by his own behavior. And when we started teaching him emotional skills he never learned as a kid, he slowly started to change. That right there, that capacity for regret, for growth, makes all the difference. What drives all this? It's not a hunger for power or a need to win. It's fear, insecurity, and a desperate hope that someone will finally show them how to do it better. People who are emotionally immature act out because they don't know another way. Their internal world is shaky. They're scared of abandonment, terrified of not being enough, secretly convinced everyone else knows a secret they'll never learn. It's like being stuck on the outside looking in at life's grown-up table, and the only tools you have are the ones that failed you in the past. Now, let's bust one of the biggest myths about emotional immaturity, that it's hopeless. It isn't. I've watched grown adults in my office, all kinds of backstories, finally make the connections they'd missed for decades. I've seen fathers learn how to apologize to their kids for the very first time, mothers finally figure out how to comfort instead of criticize, couples realize that their biggest fights were just two kids in grown-up bodies, both scared to admit it. But, and this is key, growth only happens if the person is willing. It takes clarity, boundaries, a willingness to be uncomfortable, and a whole lot of support. I can give you plenty of examples, trust me. I had another client, a 40-year-old man, tough as nails at work, but he'd spiral at home if things didn't go his way. He'd get jealous, defensive, lash out with sarcasm. It turned out, growing up, every feeling except anger got him teased or ignored. Nobody ever taught him how to sit with sadness or discomfort. When he finally saw that, he was able to start the real work. It's not magic, it's practice. The way all this shows up day to day, it's not subtle. You'll get outbursts, slam doors, nasty words. The emotionally immature aren't top-tier manipulators, they're reactors. They go for the quick hit, name-calling, storming off, putting someone down, and then collapse into regret or denial after the damage is done. That's the pattern. Their words wound. But it's often clumsy self-protection, not a calculated campaign to control you. Go a step deeper and look at their attention-seeking behavior. They need to feel seen and heard, and they'll go to exhausting lengths to get it. A dramatic exit, a social media pity post. Starting fights they hope someone else will smooth over. But look closer, it's rarely about dominance or control. They're not plotting grand schemes to run your life. They just want reassurance that they matter, even if they can't ask for it in a healthy way. Now, here's where things get tricky, and why so many people mix this up with narcissism, the tantrums, the selfishness, the drama. It can look the same, but what's underneath is miles apart. One's about inability, the other's about weaponizing. That fine line, it matters. And if you don't spot it, you might wind up treating the wrong thing or giving up on someone who actually could grow into the partner, friend, or parent you always hoped for. So keep your eyes open, trust what you're seeing, and dig beneath the surface. This is how you start to tell who's actually able to grow and who's not even trying. Want to know the difference? The narcissist ain't just struggling with emotions. They're weaponizing them to control you. That's the line in the sand here. If emotional immaturity is someone swinging blindly, the narcissist is the heavyweight fighter entering the ring with a game plan and throwing those punches right where it hurts. With narcissists, the confusion isn't accidental, it's engineered. Let's break it down, those fundamental distinctions you might have missed. Emotional limitation is sad, malicious intent is dangerous. Where the emotionally immature person is stuck in a pattern they can't quite see, the narcissist is steering the ship. They know how to charm, how to play weak, when to draw you close and when to push you away. Every feeling, every fight, every quiet moment is a chessboard, and you're just a piece to be moved when it suits them. Narcissists put grandiosity front and center. We're talking Olympic-level need for admiration. The praise, the compliments, the applause, they crave it the way other people crave oxygen. If the spotlight dims for even a second, you'll see them scramble, do whatever it takes to drag it back their way. But it's not the open, fun confidence you see in truly secure people. It's fragile, like a balloon about to pop. That's why underneath all that bravado, there's an ocean of insecurity. The narcissist desperately needs others to reinforce a self-image they secretly don't believe is real. Now, here's where the empathy deficit comes in. But it isn't just not having empathy. No, this is weaponized. They'll only mirror your emotions if it gets them somewhere. If tears can manipulate, you'll get waterworks. If charm can disarm you, you'll get warm smiles. But genuine care for your needs, non-existent. They use empathy as a disguise, not a connection. If you hit a rough patch and it doesn't serve them, don't expect support. They measure out concern in drops carefully to see what they can get out of you. That sense of entitlement, they walk through life like the rules do not apply. Bad day at work, someone else's fault. Parking ticket, unfair world. Your attention, they're right. Special privileges, of course, your needs, your boundaries, your feelings, only obstacles in the way of what they deserve. It's not just selfishness, it's an unshakable belief that they are built to have more, deserve more, and should never be held accountable. The manipulative, exploitative behaviors, they're absolutely relentless. I have seen narcissists use guilt like a scalpel. They'll twist your words, rewrite history, and flatter you just enough to keep you dangling. It's not a tantrum. And it's not out of control. It's calculated. Little tests: will you agree with their version of the argument? Will you take the blame again? Will you jump through another hoop? They score each win like a trophy, and the more you play along, the tighter the snare gets. And don't be fooled by the show of confidence. That grandiosity is really the moat around an inner fortress of insecurity. You'll never see the real person in there because even they're terrified of facing it. Most narcissists don't operate from a place of true self-love. It's all performance. If you challenge their greatness or poke holes in their fantasy, watch the mask slip. That's when the rage shows up, or the cold withdrawal, or the most chilling, the calculated plan to punish you in subtle, invisible ways. From a clinical lens, the DSM-5 sketches narcissistic personality disorder with chilling clarity. We're talking a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. It's not just a phase or a bad year. This is who they are day in, day out. In my years of practice, I've seen DSM-5 criteria weaponized as a defense. I'm just passionate, but deep down, the pattern is always the same. Above all, they seek advantage, praise, and a way to avoid their own flaws coming to light. There's a whole body of research, too. If you really want the receipts, Otto Kernberg and colleagues have spent decades on the narcissistic personality structure. What they found is that this isn't about someone simply missing emotional tools, but about a deeply rooted distortion in how they relate to themselves and others. The narcissist relationships aren't built for mutual care or growth. They're transactions you give, they take, and if you question it, you're out. I remember a couple I worked with where the wife kept telling herself, maybe he's just immature, maybe he'll grow up. Every fight, every put down, every game of silent treatment she chalked up to stress or family background. But the more we dug, the more we saw a pattern. He'd up the ante every time she set a boundary. He'd twist her words, pull the kids in, keep her off balance. There was never true remorse, only strategy. It wasn't immaturity, it was malignant narcissism running the show. That's what control looks like when it isn't about panic, but about power. The obsession with control is the soil narcissism grows from. Not just controlling the schedule or the finances, but controlling your perception, your sense of safety, your definition of reality. If you try to get air, they squeeze tighter. Leave, they love, bomb you back, set a boundary. Suddenly they're the victim. You've got to understand that narcissism wears many masks. There's the overt narcissist, the classic, loud, look at me type life of the party, dazzling on first impression. But don't relax if things seem quiet. The covert narcissist is more insidious, the brooding martyr, the self-deprecating manipulator, the master of subtle guilt trips and put downs. Whether bold or sneaky, the goal is the same: keep the upper hand, stay at the center of your world, keep you perpetually working for their approval. That absence of empathy isn't an accident. It's a deliberate gap in the wiring. They don't lack empathy because they never learned it. They lack it because it gets in the way. Real connection means vulnerability, accountability, and letting someone else matter. The narcissist doesn't want that, because letting you matter means letting down the walls that hold their whole identity together. To them, relationships are tools. You're not a partner, you're a supply. The admiration, attention, even your anger, they feed on it, twisting it around their needs. Once you stop being useful, or once you see through the act, you're discarded or replaced, sometimes brutally. If you protest, suddenly you're the one with the problem. Superiority complex. That's the default setting. They sincerely believe they're smarter, more special, better than anyone else. If you challenge that, prepare for gaslighting, projection, impossible double standards, or sudden cuts so they can maintain their illusion. Now that you know what each one looks like, here are the key differences that matter. If you remember one thing, it's these 4 differences. They'll tell you if you're dealing with someone who can grow or someone who'll destroy you. Listen close, because this isn't just academic, it's the North Star for your sanity, your healing, and your hope. Let's jump right in with motivation. Why does someone act out? Why do they blow up the room, stomp all over your boundaries, or melt down over the tiniest thing? With emotional immaturity, what's underneath is fear, insecurity, a blind spot the size of Texas. They don't want to hurt you. They're just so wrapped up in their own insecurity that they're trying to survive emotionally, usually without any clue that it's costing you. Maybe their childhood trained them to expect abandonment the moment they messed up. Maybe they're living in a constant low-level panic that you'll see through their cracks and leave. Their tantrums are shields, not swords. Now, swing the spotlight to the narcissist. Their motivation isn't hidden hurt, it's power and control, plain and simple. Think of it as a chess grandmaster. Every move calculated for domination. They're not melting down out of terror that you won't love them. They're flipping the script to put you back under their thumb to keep the power in their corner. At every fork in the road, a narcissist's question is, how do I win? How do I stay on top, look superior, and make sure nobody else gets the upper hand? That's driven by grandiosity, the conviction that the world runs on their rules, and anyone not playing along is either a threat or a pawn. Let's talk empathy, difference number 2. And this one is the beating heart of what separates these types for good. The emotionally immature have empathy buried in there. Sometimes it's deep down, locked behind old walls and years of shame, but give them the right environment, the right boundaries, some uncomfortable lessons. They can learn it. They can get it after the fact, even if it takes them falling flat more than a few times. You'll see flashes, a moment of regret, a gesture when the mask slips and they're suddenly sorry or at least bewildered by how they made you feel. Growth is possible even if it's messy. Narcissists, you're staring into the void. There's no muscle to build here, no chance the light bulb will switch on. Their empathy isn't broken, it's just not part of the factory model. If they show any, it's a calculated move, meant to reel you back in or put on a show for the crowd. The moment your pain clashes with their needs, your pain vanishes from the room. You can beg, you can plead, you can spell it out on a chalkboard, doesn't matter. Real connection causes vulnerability and nothing threatens a narcissist more. Now, here's where people get stuck relationship impact. With emotional immaturity, the relationship is rocky. Sometimes it's a hot mess, but it's not set in stone. With work, boundaries, therapy, and the right appetite for change, things can improve. I've watched couples claw their way out of years of silent treatments and slammed doors because one or both partners finally owned up, apologized, and pushed themselves to do the real work. It ain't easy, but I've seen miracles happen in that space. But with a narcissist, destruction is inevitable. The relationship is less a partnership and more a hostage situation, a war of exhaustion, with your confidence, self-worth, and identity on the firing line. They can turn a family dinner into a battleground, a vacation into a gauntlet, your career into collateral. It's always exploitative, always tilted toward their comfort, never about fixing what's broken unless that fix gives them more control. The best you'll get is a mirage honeymoon periods, love bombing the superficial turnaround that lasts just long enough to suck the wind out of your next escape plan. 4th, self-perception. With the emotionally immature, you'll find an undercurrent of insecurity, low self-esteem, chronic uncertainty, sometimes even shame. Their bravado isn't confidence, it's camouflage. Scratch the surface and you'll hear it. I'm not good enough, I always screw up. Nobody really cares. These are people who secretly wonder if they're worthy of love at all, and their bad behavior is often a desperate reflex to keep from feeling so small. Now put a narcissist under the microscope, inflated sense of superiority. It's not just a trait, it's their entire operating system. They genuinely believe they're smarter, better, more deserving, more everything. If you dare point out a weakness, prepare for rage, stonewalling, or a smear campaign. They'll rewrite history, twist facts, and put you on trial for even questioning their narrative. It's all about maintaining that God-level self-image because the alternative, that they might be ordinary or flawed, just can't be tolerated. I've seen these differences play out in real life, sometimes back to back in my office. True story, two couples, similar fights. Couple one, husband yells, wife shuts down, he apologizes but keeps slipping. Dig a little deeper, and it's clear he's terrified of abandonment. Always one step ahead of being left, never learned how to self-soothe or stay put in a hard conversation. Give him structure, watch him squirm, give him time, and you'll see progress, sometimes crawling, sometimes leaping, but moving toward the light. Couple two, every session a performance. Husband deflects blame, laughs about his wife's tears, cheers up only when she's crawling back, always one step ahead of my questions. Set boundaries. He bulldozes, challenges story. Suddenly, he's the victim, the wounded genius, the betrayed partner. No remorse, just annoyance that his control is slipping. When his wife finally left, he didn't mourn the relationship. He recruited new followers to keep feeding his need for admiration. So let's be brutally honest about this change factor. Emotional immaturity can turn around, but only with effort, humility, and sometimes a support team cheering them on. I've watched grown men and women learn slowly to own their missteps, to apologize more than once, to let their guard down and actually listen. The research on therapy is hopeful here. Outcome studies show real progress is possible, especially when the person buys in and feels safe enough to take risks. On the flip side, narcissism is immune to therapy 9 times out of 10. The narcissist isn't in your office to get better. They're there to manipulate, to charm the therapist, to weaponize the process. They might use therapy as another chess piece. Learn your language so they can gaslight you more effectively. Learn to mimic remorse just long enough to drag you back in. Real lasting change, I haven't seen it, and neither have most of my colleagues who've treated this profile for decades. Here's a personal story I rarely share. My own father, for many years, fooled people. He presented as the quiet type, hardworking, the guy who'd give you the shirt off his back. But behind closed doors, he controlled everything: money, schedules, emotions, even the temperature in the room. If you stood up to him, he'd make you pay, but always in ways nobody else could see. That's covert narcissism, damage done in whispers with a smile. My uncle, whole different deal. The biggest kid at the party, always apologizing, never quite fitting in, but deep down wanted to do right, wanted to belong. One needed power, the other needed love. If you're wondering what to look for, the warning signs are there, usually long before you're in crisis. Watch how they handle no. Watch who gets blamed when things go wrong. Are apologies real, or just a handshake before the next shove? Is empathy something they strive for, even clumsily, or just a foreign concept? Does therapy lead to growth, or to another round of word games? Trust those early gut feelings. Patterns don't lie, and neither does the fallout they leave behind. Here's what's going to mess with your head. Both can act selfish, throw tantrums, and make you miserable, but the reasons are completely different. And if you get that confused, it'll twist you into knots. There are days when you're going to look at someone losing their cool, demanding your attention, acting like the world owes them comfort, and you'll think, is this a narcissist or just grown up immaturity on full display? Trust me, you're not alone. It throws off even the seasoned pros. Let's get all the cards on the table about the 4 main similarities, because this is where so many people get blindsided. First up, self-centeredness. Whether you're dealing with narcissism or emotional immaturity, the world seems to shrink down to just one person and their feelings. You find yourself erased from the conversation. Every win is theirs, every pain becomes about them. Every celebration somehow pivots back to their story. It looks the same on the surface, especially in the heat of the moment. What about me? Is the battle cry for both. Slide right into poor emotional regulation. Both types will blow up out of nowhere. Take everything personally, ride the highs and lows with zero warning. Maybe it's the silent treatment, maybe a nasty put down, maybe ugly tears over something that doesn't make sense. If you're the target, the only thing you know for sure is you feel whiplashed and off balance afterwards, again and again. Let's not forget dependency on external validation. Oh, they both need applause, just in different flavors. The emotionally immature will chase compliments, approval, reassurance, like a kid showing you a picture they colored and needing you to say it's the best. Narcissists, on the other hand, want your admiration because it's their lifeblood, but it has to be all about how exceptional they are. Nothing less will do. Either way, you find yourself dancing around their insecurity, pouring on praise, hoping for peace. Last on the hit list, difficulty with relationships, friendships, marriages, parenthood. These dynamics get bruised, even broken, because neither pattern plays well with actual connection. You feel like you're working double time to keep things stable, but the chaos always finds you. There's a lot of hurt, a lot of explaining, but never much resolution. So why are these overlaps so strong? Both types involve emotional dysregulation at the core. But let's be crystal clear, the roots are not the same. For the emotionally immature, the chaos comes from not knowing better. They weren't shown how to sit with discomfort, how to process pain, or how to handle not getting their way. Their meltdowns are the emotional equivalent of a child stuck on the outside of a locked door, banging to be let in. Their brains hit the panic button, and whatever comes out is messy, unfiltered, rarely strategic. The narcissist. Their chaos is a weapon. They know what button to push and when. If things aren't going their way, they'll escalate, but it's cold, sharp, surgical. Manipulation is a tool, not a byproduct of panic. They toss out temper tantrums or tears or poor me stories exactly when it gets them closer to their goal. Center stage, your compliance, the ability to flip the blame. It's not bad coping, it's strategy. Let me illustrate with a case that still sticks with me. I had a patient, a thoughtful, intelligent woman who came in convinced her husband was just struggling to grow up. Every family fight turned into a scene shouting, slammed doors, stone-cold silences that lasted days. But every now and then, she'd get an apology, a promise to change, tiny flickers of remorse that made her hopeful. But as time passed, she noticed something. Every apology came only when she threatened to leave or got sympathy from friends. If she stood her ground, he'd twist the story, gaslight her, punish her in subtle ways. What we discovered together was that she wasn't dealing with immaturity. She was living with a narcissist who had mastered the art of appearing clueless when it suited him, but always kept the upper hand when it really mattered. Now, testing the difference comes down to the why, not just the what. Here's where narcissists and the emotionally immature go different directions. A narcissist will push your boundaries on purpose. Lose your temper, and they'll turn it on you. They'll say you're the bully, the reason for their pain, and suddenly you're the one apologizing for getting hurt. So that's strategic. The emotionally immature, on the other hand, cross boundaries without ever noticing they're there. They'll trample your feelings, but once you call them on it, sometimes you'll see confusion, even embarrassment. They might fumble an apology or just shut down, but it isn't cold calculation. They simply don't get it, at least not right away. If you're wondering why even professionals sometimes miss this, you're not alone. It's messy. The same behavior, silent treatment, explosive anger, endless blaming can look identical across both groups. Even with experience, it comes down to how deep you dig, how much you watch. Sometimes, what gave me clarity with patients was staying with them long enough to see the pattern unfold over months, not just isolated episodes. This timeline matters. Patterns emerge only with time. Early on, you get charm, apologies, confusion. It's easy to tell yourself they're just learning, they'll grow. But as the months go by, take notes. Does the person ever truly own their mistakes, actually try to learn, make real changes after the storms? Or do they just hit reset, charm you back, and lead you through the same painful dance again and again, always with a new excuse? There are red flags early on, if you know what to look for. With the emotionally immature, you see hope for teaching, for growth, maybe clumsy efforts at repair, attempts to come back together. With the narcissist, though it's subtler, a refusal to admit blame even with evidence, a tendency to punish or belittle instead of connect, a weird hollow feeling after every heart-to-heart. It's like talking to someone behind glass. They see you, but they're not really there with you. Let's talk about social masking. because it throws people off the scent every time. Both types can look normal on the outside. At work, they might be the life of the party, the most helpful colleague, the neighbor everyone admires. Narcissists, especially, can pour on the charm with strangers or acquaintances. It's home where the cracks show. The emotionally immature might have more public slip-ups, but both know how to keep up appearances enough to escape early detection. What really sorts things out is what happens after conflict. The aftermath is telling. With emotional immaturity, you might see sulking excuses, denial, but sometimes eventually an attempt to repair. The narcissist, when confronted, doubles down rage, contempt, or icy withdrawal. You'll find yourself apologizing for bringing up the issue at all, and if you're extra unlucky, they'll launch a campaign to turn friends and family against you. What you won't get is a sincere effort to reconnect or real remorse. I'm giving you a psychological test from my 45 years in practice. This could save your sanity. I want you to really listen up. Because when everything blurs together and you're left questioning yourself at 3 a.m, this is how you separate truth from manipulation and genuine growth from an endless merry-go-round of pain. Let's walk through my litmus tests, the ones that have never let me down. Start with the response when consequences finally show up. Imagine you stand your ground, set a boundary, put your foot down, or just call someone out when they cross a line that matters to you. The emotionally immature person will often react with defensiveness, maybe even outrage. They'll sulk, make excuses, storm off, classic moves. But here's the kicker: after the dust settles, given some room and encouragement, you might see remorse. There's shame, maybe apologies, maybe a real attempt, even if clumsy, to make it better. You can see gears turning, a willingness to try to stumble toward change. They didn't like hurting you in that discomfort. It lingers for them. Run the same test with a narcissist, and it's a whole different movie. Presented with consequences, they dodge, deny, deflect, and more often than not, turn the blame back on you. If you weren't so dramatic, none of this would have happened. You're actually attacking me. They'll rewrite history, spin a new story, sometimes rope in third parties or twist your words so tightly you start to question your own sanity. Remorse. You'll wait a lifetime. Their game is protecting themselves, even if it means pushing you under the bus or making you beg for forgiveness for setting a reasonable boundary. And if you keep pushing, out come the accusations that you're unstable or abusive. Welcome to gaslighting, ground zero. Now, let's look at the empathy challenge. Give them a scenario that takes real caring. Maybe you're hurt or somebody else is struggling and needs compassion instead of criticism. The emotionally immature person may not get it at first. You'll see a blank stare, confusion, even insensitivity. But if you explain, guide, let them process, sometimes given time, they'll make the effort and try to show care. It might look awkward or be too little, too late, but it means something. The ability to learn and grow is still there. A narcissist, no dice. No matter how much you spell it out, reframe it, or plead, they keep coming back to themselves. They might mimic concern if it suits their goals, but the moment you need something that doesn't revolve around their needs, the mask drops. They're either annoyed, dismissive, or outright mocking. True empathy simply isn't on their menu. Now take criticism, probably the most revealing test I know. Critique or call out the immature person, and you're likely in for pouting, defensiveness stories, or shifting blame. Sometimes raised voices, sometimes walking away. But after the temperature drops, if you genuinely keep the door open, they might ask questions, process what happened, maybe even admit they could have done things differently. It's slow, it's bumpy, but it's possible. You'll see humility, even if it's the size of a pinhole. Try that with a narcissist and prepare to duck. Criticism is an attack in their world, a declaration of war. They come back swinging, insults, contempt, gaslighting, whatever gets you to retreat or feel small. Their reaction is about protecting their castle, not rethinking their behavior. They'll seize on your words, twist them, or use that feedback to try and control the narrative later. Often you're left feeling belittled or foolish for ever bringing it up. Let's talk about the change opportunity. You offer support, resources, maybe therapy, self-help books, or just a patient ear. The emotionally immature person might first scoff, resist, or stall, but deep down, part of them can engage, maybe slowly, maybe reluctantly. But if you're truly offering a way forward without shaming, some will bite. Over time, the ones who get it will try, sometimes fail, but try again. That's hope. The narcissist, they'll reject help, or worse, pretend to accept it only to gain more ammunition against you. Therapy becomes a stage to charm the therapist, twist stories, or get you back under their control. If you attempt to push growth, they either push back harder or vanish until you cave. Growth isn't on their agenda unless it sharpens their toolkit for manipulation. Document everything. My best advice isn't glamorous, but it's life-saving. Journal the blow-ups, record the apologies, track the change, promises, and whether anything actually shifts. Write it all down, because when you're in the thick of it, memory gets muddled by hope and hurt and fatigue. Keep a log, dates what happened, how they responded. Over time, you'll see a pattern, the real personality, not just the performance. This record helps in therapy for your own clarity, and if things go really sideways, for legal protection. Let's ground this in real life. I once worked with a man who for years mistook his wife's drama for narcissism. She'd blow up, say terrible things, stonewall him for days. But after a fight, she'd always circle back. A note, a tearful apology, questions about how to do better next time. Her progress was messy, but step by step, she owned more of her stuff, even tried therapy. Another client, though. His partner weaponized every apology, used it to reset the board and trap him with guilt. Years passed and nothing changed except the blame. You've got to watch long-term patterns. Don't make up your mind after one good week or one big apology. Is there a steady shift, however small, or is every apology just the start of another spin around the same mountain? Narcissists repeat the script with better acting the next time. Maybe more tears or bigger promises, but no deeper change. The emotionally immature will often show clumsy progress. It's like slow spring growth, a bud here, a new leaf there. Don't forget about safety. If you start seeing threats, rage, intimidation, or stonewalling, operating this test can cross into danger. True narcissists, when cornered or called out, can retaliate hard emotionally, verbally, sometimes even physically. Plan ahead, let a friend or therapist know. Set up safe spaces, and always trust your well-being first. If you reach your limit and nothing changes, that's when a professional assessment becomes essential. Find a clinician who knows the nuances, who won't just slap a label on the first tantrum or burst of anger. Sometimes you need that objective outside voice to validate your reality, help untangle your confusion, or assist with boundaries and safety planning. And if you ever feel physically threatened, never try to fix things alone. Prioritize your safety first, always. Your gut matters. When your stomach churns every time they apologize, or you find yourself dreading conversations, losing sleep, or feeling smaller day by day, that's data. Your emotional alarms are just as real as the facts in the notebook. Trust them. Now that you know the difference, let me put something straight. Knowing what you're actually up against is nothing unless you know what to do about it. I want to save you years of pain, maybe even heartache you don't see coming. And I don't care if it's your spouse, your sister, your boss, or your own parent. You deserve a map so you can stop stumbling around in the dark and start making decisions that give your life back to you. Let's get right into handling emotional immaturity first, because this is a group with possibility if, and this is the biggest if they're willing to try. The very first thing you need are boundaries, and I mean boundaries with teeth. A boundary is not a suggestion, it's an expectation with a consequence. You tell them calmly and clearly what's okay and what isn't. If you raise your voice and call me names in front of the kids, I'll take them out for the rest of the evening. I will not argue when you're yelling. Don't make threats you can't back up. Mean it and follow through. And don't get sucked into arguing about the fairness of it. This isn't a democracy, it's you protecting your peace. Offer support, but only with limits. You can encourage, you can give resources, maybe some books, maybe suggest couples counseling, maybe talk about what healthy communication looks like. Shoot. Sometimes the best thing you do is just model the kind of behavior you hope they'll mirror. I'm upset, but I'm telling you calmly. I'd love for you to do the same. It will be awkward at first, but over time, repetition helps. Stay patient, but keep your eye on the scoreboard. Is there effort or just apologies with no follow-through? Are they at least showing up to therapy, trying new things, admitting fault on their own, even when nobody is checking? I want you to hear this too. Don't enable. Don't make excuses. Don't bail them out every time they wreck the peace in your house. You're not cruel by holding someone accountable. You're caring for both of you. The only way people outgrow emotional immaturity is if life and you stop rescuing them from the fallout of their own actions. But, and this is key, don't abandon them if you see real effort. Progress is slow, messy, and backwards half the time, but as long as the graph is going up, you might stick it out, especially if kids are history. Make it worth the work. Here's when to dig in and when to walk away. If you set boundaries, provide support, recommend help, and they take zero responsibility consistently, it's no longer about them learning, it's them refusing to try. That's when you need to start asking why you're staying what you're hoping for and whether you can sacrifice years for hope alone. Now, let's flip the script. You're facing narcissism. Maybe you've just clocked it after months or years. Maybe you've known all along but needed someone to say it out loud. First rule, self-protection. That means all your energy goes into fortifying your boundaries, gathering a support team, and starting a plan B even if you aren't ready to use it yet. Document everything, especially if there are shared finances, children, or any chance things might turn legal. And I mean dates, incidents, what was said, what was threatened, how you responded. Narcissists are expert at flipping the script, and having documentation isn't about being dramatic. It's your protection if things get ugly. Don't try to win arguments. Don't try to make them see your side. Gray rock. That's what I tell clients. That means responding with as little emotion and information as possible. Give short, factual, neutral replies. Don't let them bait you. Don't shout. Don't defend. Don't overshare. The less you react, the less fuel they get, and often they'll get bored and move on to other targets or at least ramp down the daily drama. If you want out, start planning quietly. Narcissists, once they feel you slipping from their control, can become more unpredictable. If you share children, assets, or a life together, reach out to a lawyer or therapist who's seen this pattern before. Set up your own bank account. Build a support network. Let a close friend or family member in on your plans in case you need help fast. If things are safe, phase out. If not, you may need to leave quickly and cut contact. Don't let shame keep you frozen. You deserve safety, not just survival. When it comes to therapy, here's the truth. Therapy only works if the person wants to change, not because you want them to. Emotional immaturity sometimes cracks open with the right therapy, especially when they connect to a counselor who sees through their defenses and still holds a mirror up in kindness. Narcissism. Most seasoned therapists will tell you it's nearly impossible. Narcissists will turn therapy into performance art, use it to collect intel for manipulation, or drop out at the first sign they don't have total control. Protect your time and money. Go for therapy for yourself, for clarity, strength, and support in building a new future. Don't go it alone. Support systems make all the difference. If you're isolated, that's by design. Narcissists cut you off from your people to keep you from reality checking their stories. Reconnect. Join a support group, even online. Find friends, family, clergy, whoever gets it and won't pressure you to just be nicer or try harder. If leaving is on the table, find resources ahead of time, domestic abuse hotlines, legal advocates, community support. You are not weak for needing help. You are wise for preparing. There are legal considerations you might never think of until it's too late. If there is emotional or verbal abuse, especially if you're being threatened, tracked, or manipulated in financial or parenting decisions, consult a lawyer sooner than later. You are not overreacting. Documentation, again, is protection. Kids in the mix. Courts often don't understand emotional or psychological abuse unless you bring facts, records, and witnesses. Keep your side clean, stick to court orders or agreements, and never stoop to their tactics. Now, let's talk about your personal safety plan because, look, I've seen even quiet narcissists turn menacing when they feel cornered. Always have an exit. Memorize emergency numbers. Have a packed bag if things feel shaky. And prioritize your safety and your children's above what anyone on the outside thinks of you. Your dignity, future, and life are worth more than their reputation. I know this is heavy, but let me give you some hope. I worked with a woman so torn up over her angry, volatile husband that she truly believed she was the root of the trouble. She stuck it out, set boundaries, dragged him to counseling. Turned out, after some grinding months, he wasn't a narcissist. He was emotionally stunted, scared, but given structure and patience, he learned, shifted, and they ended up rebuilding something lasting. That wouldn't have happened if she just bailed at the first tantrum, or if she'd muddled around trying to love him harder instead of requiring him to grow. But let's face it, sometimes the best case is escape. Another woman, her husband was the life of the party in public, cruel and controlling in private. Over time, she logged every manipulation, every outburst, every sleight of hand. When she was ready, she built her exit plan quietly, got her supports lined up, and left. She got her life and her sense of reality back. And the thing I hear most from survivors, I wish I'd recognized it sooner. If you've got children, the stakes are higher. Emotional immaturity is contagious. If you're not careful, kids model what they see. Protect them by being the calm, structured grown-up, even if you're the only one. In the case of a narcissist parent, document every failed exchange. Never use the kids as go-betweens, and when safe, validate your children's reality. Remind them it's not your job to fix how dad acts, or mom's anger isn't your fault. If you can get professional guidance for co-parenting, do it. Pull in every resource you can. Therapists, support groups, parenting hotlines, legal help. Don't try to be a hero. People can't pour from an empty cup, and you owe it to yourself and your kids not just to endure, but to heal and thrive when it's over. Self-care is not a fad word here. This is survival. You lose yourself dealing with these patterns. Find your joy and rebuild your self-worth, even if it's starting with tiny steps. Take walks. Read. Pray or meditate. Join something that makes you feel strong again. Don't let anyone ever tell you your pain was because you didn't try hard enough. As you move forward into new relationships, keep your eyes open for the old red flags, excessive charm, disregard for your nose, shifting standards, apologies that never turn to action. Trust your gut, and if something feels off, don't explain it away. You can't change a narcissist no matter how good your heart is. You might help someone who's emotionally immature grow up only if they're willing. But either way, you absolutely can reclaim yourself, your voice, and your hope. Let me have your comments. Let me have your questions about which type you think you're dealing with in your life. Nothing's off limits. I'm doing this because I want to have an impact for every one of you listening, for your lives, for your futures. You deserve relationships where growth is possible, not cycles where your worth gets chewed up and spit out. In our next episode, we'll talk about how to heal for good after narcissistic abuse. Until then, have a good week, and thank you for letting me spend this time with you. And remember, the difference really does matter a lot.